One of the things that I think is so important about Stephanie's legacy is that she's such a clear-eyed communicator. She understands what the select board can do in a particular area, what might be our role as select board members, and how to actually accomplish that without treading on anybody else's toes, without overpromising what we might be able to do, and just really focusing on what we're able to do and not trying to micromanage other people's lives associated with that.
In terms of making the select board more efficient, she was always supremely prepared. When she became chair, she would often draft material for us to look at so that we didn't waste any time getting going. And yet she was supremely fair and would listen and welcome comments from us, go back and make another draft, and then bring it forward again. And sometimes it took more than once before the select board was satisfied, but we were far more efficient doing it that way than starting with a blank piece of paper.
She, I think, has a real sense of professionalism. So, for example, little things such as formality were actually positive steps, referring to each other as Mr. and Ms. and so forth, and using titles helped to give the town a sense of confidence and professional, competent management.
A funny thing that used to happen a lot was I'd be walking around downtown or in the supermarket or someplace, and people that I didn't know would come up to me and say, "You run a great meeting." And I thought that was such a funny thing to say, but that was really important to me, so I really appreciated that. So I think my tombstone is going to read, "She ran a great meeting."
The other thing that Stephanie has been so good at, and that I've tried to model after her, is thinking about relationships and follow-through. She's looked so carefully at the relationships between the colleges as well as UMass and the business community, and how our political system all works together in a way that I think hasn't been done in a long time. And the way that she does that is she's willing to talk to people in a way that's very clear about what the select board can do. She's not the sort of just, "Hi, how are you?" although she's very, very pleasant that way too. But she's really focused on the issues and what might be accomplished in the select board venue, or maybe how they might accomplish their goals in another venue.
She instituted things like having a tea for student leaders and other campus personnel once a year. She instituted ways of keeping students who were coming back from gatherings downtown at the bar, usually, back to campus, and having people stand outside at night to guide the students back in a way that would disturb neighborhoods the least. So that's a program called Walk This Way, and it continues to this day. Moreover, she not only helped organize that program, she'd be out there late at night helping to guide the students so they would create the least disturbance for neighbors.
The ideal of leadership that I saw here was one in which one has a distinct vision, but rather than simply trying to impose it on people, one brings them along through example and through dialogue. And I think we really got to the point now where we have a sense of trust in town government and a sense of the select board and in town meeting, both the executive and the legislative. And I think a lot of that really is Stephanie's contribution.
I met her dad first, John Cool, and hadn't even really realized his daughter had moved back to town at first. So it was a real pleasure to have a chance to talk to somebody who'd moved back here on purpose and became very interested in politics. And also was younger than me, because in this town, politics tends to be often something that people do after they retire. So it was very fun to have that aspect of her personality as well. And that was even before she started hooping. But she did in fact talk a couple of us into trying yoga before that, so that youth aspect was important.
If Amherst were ever to change its form of government, I would absolutely run for mayor. Will I ever have the opportunity to do that? I have no idea.